Hello. I have been watching the news a lot. I'm thinking about going on a sabbatical from watching the news, searching the internet for news, because it's very depressing. It's very despondent, and I know that God has everything in control, but I am human, so I worry. And I believe that we might be nearing the end times. I truly believe that we are going through the early pains of childbirth here. And I'm just going to quote 2 Timothy 3:1. But mark this, there'll be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. And I believe that describes right-wing Christianity, that have tied themselves with big business and the corporations at the expense of everyone else. I can even say that maybe the church commingling with the interests of big business at the expense of the poor might be the whore of Babylon that was talked about in Revelations. This is just a theory. I'm not a prophet. I would rather be no prophet at all than a false prophet, and we have so many of them around. My theory of how it's going to go down is like this. Either the debt ceiling is not raised, we go into default, interest rates go up, the economy goes in the crapper, Obama loses the election in a anybody but Obama craze, and loses it to someone like Michelle Bachmann or Rick Perry, or maybe someone else who is a right-wing fundamentalist Christian with Dominious ties. That's why Rick Perry scares the hell out of me. I mean, his prayer rally that's going to be next month is sponsored by people who hold gays responsible for the Holocaust. Demanded that all Muslims be deported from the U.S. That gays and lesbians are in the clasp of Satan. I mean, you can say that they are sinners, but to say they're Satanists, I mean, I believe what Antipas said, a website, a ministry that I go to, that's creating an enemy absolute. You have the International House of Prayer, that is a proponent of Seven Mountains Dominionism, a movement that seeks to have Christians take control of all aspects of life, including government, business, entertainment, and the media, and supports the criminalization of homosexuality. People who, I believe, want to institute a theocracy. And it all comes down to R.J. Deshunny, if I'm pronouncing it right, who's a Christian Reconstructionist who believes that the Mosaic Law should be brought back, and that is stoning for adulterers, stoning homosexuals, etc. And what I find very ironic, the same people who are fighting against Sharia law would probably be okay with putting the Mosaic Law that is just as strict and strident. And John Hagee, who claimed that God sent Hitler to be a hunter of Jews, believes the Hurricane Katrina looked like the curse of God. Dave Barton, who's a pseudo-historian, who believes that this country was built as a Christian nation, which it was founded by Christians, but he misuses scripture to make it seem that Jesus was advocating a free market system. He has been peddling a documentary that he made blaming the Democratic Party for slavery, lynching, and Jim Crow, while ignoring the more recent history that it was more Democrats that have been helping minorities than Republicans. Pastor Stephen Broden has repeatedly insisted that a violent overthrow of the U.S. government must remain on the table. There are people who want to institute theocracy. And I believe that's a perfect way for Satan, for the Antichrist to come about. That the Antichrist will pose as a Christian. When Jesus was talking about the end of the age in Matthew 24, this is 24:23, at that time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Now, Oprah, if she is the Antichrist, I don't think could deceive the elect. A European socialist like the Left Behind, I don't think it would be tempting for true Christians to possibly follow. But if you have someone who's posing as a Christian, and his reign of terror will be twofold. One will be leading people away from the true God, from the true Jesus, and pushing other people farther away from Jesus and from salvation, because they view Christianity as this controlling, hypocritical, judgmental thing, and not the salvation and transforming thing that it is. So, I believe Obama will lose the next election, and we will have a dominionist right-wing leader. I also believe, I read an article about from CIA, former CIA agent, I'll post the link in post, who still has contacts over in Israel, and says that Bibi Netanyahu is considering bombing Iran before a UN Council meeting in September that would make Palestine a state. If they do that, if they bomb Iran, that would trigger a war against Israel that we, of course being Israel's ally, would have to be in. And the Arab countries would not be able to withstand a war like that, even though Pakistan has several nuclear bombs. And I believe that will be the Gog-Magog war, prophesied in Ezekiel. And I really recommend you go to www.antipastministries.com. I am not doing it justice, but they're saying that There will be a Northern Confederation of Islamic states and a Southern Confederation of Muslim states. The Southern Confederation would be in Africa, and being the king of the north and the king of the south, as talked about in Daniel, and will converge on Israel, and they will lose. 39:9. Then those who live in the towns of Israel will go out and use their weapons for fuel and burn them up, the small and large shields, the bows and arrows, the war clubs and spears. For 7 years they will use them for fuel. Some people think this is a 7-year tribulation period. And I believe the President of the United States at that time, and this war could last some time. It could last through the elections of 2012. The President of the United States at this time, whoever he or she might be, would be the hero of the hour and the most important person in the world. And I also believe, being a dominionist, he would crack down on the homosexuals. Maybe force them to go into ex-gay rehab clinics. And if they don't go to prison. Some of these pastors actually think that they should be put to death, as it said in the Bible. I don't think anyone can kill someone for a moral crime, because he who is without sin, and we are not without sin. And so I believe I'm going to quote from 2 Thessalonians 2. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. The rebellion. I believe this spitting on the Sermon on the Mount, this prosperity gospel, this gospel of might, gospel of power, gospel of kill the Muslims, is not the gospel of Christ. It's a rebellion. It's an apostasy. And from that apostasy, I believe, will come the man of lawlessness, will come the Antichrist. Daniel mentions him as the king. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He'll be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He'll show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will rely on military might. And who is the strongest military but us? And if the Antichrist would be the leader of America, having that power, having our military at his beck and call, and eventually he will turn on his Christian followers, those who have followed the Antichrist and his anti-Christian dealings. You can tell a false prophet by their fruit. You can tell a false Christian by their fruit. And the fruit coming from the right wing is not good. It's greed. It's hatred. It's discord. And I believe that this is great ground for the Antichrist to come. 1 John 2:22, who is a liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son. But if you deny Christ's teachings, if you deny taking care of the least of these, if you deny it's easier for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, if you serve money and trying to serve God, you're not following the living Jesus. You're not following our rabbi, our teacher. You may be worshiping God, but you're not following him. And that's an anti-Christian spirit. Anyway, I think that's all for now. I do these videos so I can get these thoughts out of my head. If any of you have any other ideas about who the Antichrist would be, and I'm not trying to do this as like they say the Antichrist. I'm not saying this to point names or be angry, or I'm just saying this out of concern. And I know the Antichrist, name the Antichrist game has been going on forever. I mean, even the Reformation, I think, is when it really started going, but also with, in the Crusades with the Muslims. So just keep following the Word, keep being the light, and may your fruit be plentiful. God bless.